All right, welcome to the debrief for the Elko to Centennial flight. You'll notice I'm not in a hotel room. I'm not in a crew car. I'm not at the airport. I'm in the cockpit, one leg later, posthumously debriefing the Elko to Centennial flight. So the winds through the Berthoud Pass were an absolute disaster, and conservatively I decided not to explore Rollins Pass at all. So I took the north route. That was the decision from the get-go prior to takeoff even. So the route took me north. I didn't get to see the Bonneville Flats. The route took me north of the restricted airspace. I had to, if I was going to do the southerly route, the Bonneville Flats would have been on the route of flight. But my new route of flight was going to take me north of it, north of the flats, and there's a giant chunk of restricted airspace, so I really couldn't go anywhere near the Bonneville Salt Flats. So I went to the Lucid VOR instead. It was all a moot point though, because everything in the Salt Lake area was totally fogged in. Got some beautiful photos along the way of that actually. Spectacular visuals, and I spent most of the Salt Lake crossing working out how I would try to survive if the engine quit. Anyway, so you can watch that back if you missed that part. It was kind of interesting. Let's see. Beautiful terrain east of Salt Lake. Through Wyoming. Unremarkable in terms of weather. Unremarkable in terms of the ride. Most of the time was spent, again, dealing with survival options in the event of an issue. It generally equated to finding a road. Okay, and then we got into the Denver area and the first significant peak, which I was crossing at 11.5. And I believe the iPad recording was out by that time, unfortunately. Even though everything was fully powered, it just stopped, which is very annoying. But ran into the first peak, and the wind was enough that I felt pretty good updraft, and then a little bit of a rough ride. Certainly not unbearable, but as a harbinger of what was I was in for later, I immediately climbed. So got to 13 and eventually 13 and a half, I think, if memory serves. And it smoothed out quite a bit up there. But not perfect. Didn't get out of the woods completely. Once I got over the ridge line, got to the backside, I was still pretty bumpy at 13.5. So presumably down at 11.5 it may have even been worse. Continued. Eastbound.
56, contact Kansas City Center 133.
Eventually got onto the east side of the Rockies completely. I did cut the corner a little bit from the waypoints I had set up, Bouquet and Barger I think they were, because there was absolutely no advantage to remaining that far north. I looked at the terrain off my wing and it was exactly the same as what I was over, so I just cranked to turn to the right as close as I dare to the terrain, and which was not close. And then the ride started. So then we're on the lee side of the mountain, so the winds were blowing like crazy over those mountains. 35, gusting 47, something like that, when I'd look. There is weather reporting on the Berthoud Pass, and getting it through Stratus was fantastic. Although you can actually get it through AWOS too. There is an AWOS there. Anyway, realized that I was getting caught in the lee side rotor and all the crap coming off the Rockies. So, using my admittedly limited knowledge of mountain flying, I picture the peak and the ground and the rotor over here. The rotor doesn't go all the way down to the ground. The rotor tumbles. So picture a stream and an obstruction in the water, and you picture those swirls of water and the wash and the eddies. They don't envelop, you know, a huge surrounding area. They're actually pretty limited in their size. They can go on for a while. In our case, they would have gone, you know, pretty far east of Denver, but they do not go all the way down to the ground. When the peaks are, you know, 7,000 feet above ground level. So it may not seem intuitive to get a smoother ride. I dropped down aggressively. So pulled the power, dropped down to about 1,500 AGL or 2,000 AGL, and it smoothed out reasonably. Still wasn't perfect, but it was much better than it was. And then continued to Centennial. A couple of interesting issues. They have a split tower, didn't really know that. They're using 24.6 instead of, what was it, 18.9 or whatever the published frequency was. I got that on the ATIS. Approach then told me to go to the published frequency, and I said, are you sure? Because the ATIS says 24.6. And he goes, yeah, go to 18.9. And another pilot says, hey, no, they're using 24.6. So then the controller finally believed someone. He didn't believe me, but he believed the other pilot. Said, all right, hang on. And he checked with them, and sure enough, over to 24.6. Dropped in, let's see, there was something interesting. On the pattern entry at Centennial, the runways run north-south. I was coming from the northwest, so I predicted a left downward entry. That would have been the most efficient. Basically entering on something slightly less than a 45. And let's see, so it should have been left traffic, but he told me to hustle over and enter a right downwind. And he said right downwind very clearly. He put special emphasis on it. And when you do that, or when he does that, that tells me he knows exactly what he's doing. It's no mistake. No mistake that he's saying right downwind. So I crossed on over to the east side, and then dropped in on a right downwind. And just as I said to myself, or out loud in fact, why is he putting me on the right downwind? That's weird. I then saw the citation, which had been rolling, because by the way, he had launched a citation, and pretty much I was going to have to cross through that departure corridor. So that's why I was questioning the right downwind. It seemed odd at the beginning, and then it seemed counterproductive once I saw the citation rolling. So I told him I had the citation in sight, dropped it on the right downwind, and then the next thing I heard him say was citation, whatever it was, turn left heading 320 and contact departure. So they want those IFRs on the 320 heading. So there's the runway north-south, 320 heading would have been northwest. Had I been put on the left downwind, I would have conflicted with the IFR departure. So all became clear once I saw him launch the citation, then Aliyah. The last thing of interest was there was a citation holding short, there was a jet coming in, he cleared me to land, and he told the arriving traffic to continue. I'm not sure if I had to be cleared to land yet or not, but there's a guy who checked in on a longer final. He told them to continue. There'd be a citation departure, or there'd be a citation in position. I knew he wasn't going to put that citation in position until I landed. So given that he was trying to get the citation out before the guy who was on final, that's what I pictured. I then said, hey, would you like me to do a short approach? I can help you out. He's like, yep, go for it. So I made the short approach, and that's what happened there. So being able to have the situational awareness of what's going on, not just in your own airplane, but in the surrounding airspace, just by listening, you can kind of picture where you fit in the system and what you can do that you can either help out the system, help out the controller, or not get yourself in a pickle where it's going to take unnatural acts. For example, if I didn't fly a short approach and then for some reason it required a go-around that was initiated by the tower, that could have been avoided had I offered the short approach to begin with. So it's not just about making ATC happy, it can, selfishly, it can be good for you as well sometimes. Although admittedly, most of the time it just helps the controller. Well, we did the short approach, it's always good practice. I actually enjoy them, so short approach, and then after all that, he heard me roll all the way out to Alpha 9, which is the high speed. I have no idea why that was the case. But it worked out, exited Alpha 9, and then taxied to Independence Aviation. So that was it. That was Elko to Denver, Centennial. Did not know that it was, I'm told, the third busiest GA airport in the country.